Hello everybody, my name is Happy and I'd like to welcome you all to my History Reaction channel. Today, as you can see by the screen, we're returning to Sabaton for another Last Stand. Last time we did the Attack of the Dead Men, and I listed a bunch of famous Last Stands from history from around the world, and I completely forgot about this one. Today we're going to be talking about the Last Stand of the Swiss Guard, 1527, May 6th, in the Vatican during the sack of Rome. This is, I can't believe I forgot that one, because this one is an amazing last stand. Now, it's a little bit of a different kind of a last stand. There are survivors in this one, more so than we typically associate with a last stand. I think almost a quarter of them survive, 20 to 25%. But it's still a devastating loss. And the reason we do have survivors is because it really wasn't a last stand in the sense of hold a point until death. It was a evacuation. It was to get the Pope out of danger. So it's very different, but every bit as epic and glorious. And this is one of those that I do know a little bit about because it involves the Swiss Guard and, in particular, halberds. And when we get into discussions of weapons in history, halberds are one of my personal favorites. They're certainly in the top 5. I've always had a fascination with halberds. And so when I hear stories of the Swiss Guard taking on, 189 men taking on thousands of rampaging, looting, out of control mercenaries to defend the Pope with halberds. Yeah, I'm there for that. Anyway, as always, I will include a link to the original video down in the description below. If you're just interested in the music, I highly encourage you to go over there, listen to that, show Sabaton your love and support. This is a history reaction channel. I feel like I have to point that out because occasionally I get people commenting, quit talking quit talking, just let the music play. It's like, that's not what this channel is. It's a history reaction channel. I'm here to provide historical context and information based on whatever it is we're watching. In this case, music. Music is a great way to convey history. That's what Sabaton does. That's what makes them great. Well, they're great entertainers. They're great musicians. Don't get me wrong there. But they're also great storytellers, and they're telling stories of history. And music is a great vehicle for that. For a long time, that's how we learned history. Go back to the ancient times, it was storytellers and it was music. It was minstrels, bards, skalds, and so on and so forth, poets. That's how you conveyed history in times before there was writing at all or extensive writing. So this is very much a part of how history is conveyed. And Sabaton does great on this, and they tackle some really, one thing I really respect them for is they tackle some really dark topics, historical moments that are brutal. And they present it fairly, but in a way, and this is what I appreciated about it, that you can kind of see the impact on the people around in many cases, or you see moments of heroism and so on that are that don't involve great men or the big names of the day. You get to see lesser known individuals or things like the Warsaw Uprising, where the people rise up. And that personally is the part of history that I'm the most interested in when it comes to military history. It's not the soldiers, it's not the generals, the kings, the presidents, leaders. It's the common people on the ground that are having to deal with this chaos around them. Or who, in the case of things like the Warsaw Uprising or mini revolutions, where the people themselves rise up. So, that said, we'll get into this. I will try to keep interruptions to a minimal, but that means they might be a little longer. But again, this is a history reaction channel. I have to make this transformative for YouTube not to come down on me and ask me why I'm just reposting somebody else's videos. So expect interruptions. It's part of what this is. But let's get into this. Let's see what they got to tell us about the Swiss Guard. And some point in here, I am going to interrupt and talk about halberds because there's so many misconceptions out there about halberds, how they're used, why they were used, what the purpose of a halberdier was. There's a reason why they were protecting the Pope during this, and it derives from what halberdiers were originally kind of intended to be used as. So let's get into this. Okay. Whoa. I accidentally muted it. Sorry. Okay, so let's stop here before I forget everything that they've already covered. So let's talk about the context of this. So this is May 6th of 1527. May 6th to this day is the day that they swear in new Swiss Guards for the Vatican, and specifically because of this. And it's the reason why they still use halberdiers to this day, even though halberdiers are obviously very much outdated. These guys earned that right. So this is a period, this is, well, what, about 10 years after Martin Luther starts the breaks with the Catholic Church, puts out all his pamphlets on his theses. So we have some religious turmoil starting around this time. We've also got the Italian Wars going on, and we have the Holy Roman Empire under Charles. I can't remember which number Charles it was, but it was the Charles, I'm pretty sure, involved in all this. And what ends up happening in Rome is they're extensively using mercenaries in this conflict. There's Italian, Spanish, French mercenaries involved. I'm sure others as well. And they're underpaid, they're undersupplied. Some of them aren't being paid at all. And they lose control of them in Rome. It turned into a massive rampaging, looting, and much worse. A total disaster. These people are out of control. Everybody on every side involved was kind of shocked by the brutality of what happened here in Rome, in the sack of Rome. And that's a really big danger of using mercenaries in particular. If you're not paying them and feeding them and supplying them like you're supposed to, they're in it for the money. And if they're not getting that money, they're going to get the money somehow else. They're not getting the supplies, they're going to get the supplies somehow else. and that involves looting, pillaging, plundering, and all that. And once they reach the state where they're out of control, it devolves fast. So, during all of this, we have the Pope in Rome. There was 189 Swiss guards there at the time on duty, and they're in charge of keeping the Pope safe. So they have to evacuate him from the basilica and get him to what is it? The Castel de Sant'Angelo, the castle of the angel. Castel de Sant'Angelo. They said it. My Italian's rusty, so forgive me if I'm saying it wrong or remembering it wrong. That is actually originally was the mausoleum of the Emperor Hadrian, of Hadrian Wallframe, I think. I know it was the mausoleum of Hadrian anyway. It was one of the tallest buildings in Rome at one point, and it is a massive, well-fortified position to hold out in. They talk about the secret avenue. There was a narrow avenue that the halberdiers the Swiss Guard had to get the Pope down to get him to the Castel. I've heard different people portray this differently. Some say that 189 stayed behind to cover the retreat, and 42 got the Pope to the Castel de Sant'Angelo. Castel Sant'Angelo. I don't think there's a in there, sorry. Castel Sant'Angelo. Angelo. Really, I'm butchering this, but trying to remember where I was going with that. I think in reality, there was 189 total. 42 broke off to get the Pope to safety. The other that stayed behind were the casualties. That's why you sometimes hear that around 20 to 25% survive. I think it's like 22. So 42 out of 189 survive. But let's continue. And when this is done, we're going to talk about a little bit more about this. All right, love it, love it. They did an incredible job with that one. Especially the chorus, I love it. One of their better videos so far, in my opinion, at least for me. Not necessarily the story element, although those were incredible too. But they didn't have the impact on me that some of the other one did, especially Uprising. That one really hit me pretty hard. But great story. I love the music. One of their better videos that I've seen so far, which isn't saying a lot because I'm on number 6 now. So I got a long way to go yet, and we'll get through them. I'm going to try to do. Lately, I've been doing one a week. I'll slow down eventually, probably fairly soon, to maybe one every other week. But we will continue until we get through the whole catalog at some point or the other. With that said, let's talk a little bit. And I went into this saying that one of the reasons I know a little bit about this is because of my fascination with halberds. So let's talk about the Swiss Guard and halberdiers in general, and the halberd specifically as a weapon, and why we have something like the Swiss Guard that use halberdiers at this time and even to this day. What is so iconic about the halberd? So, first of all, what is a halberd? It is typically is a shorter polearm, and by shorter polearm I mean it's a two-handed weapon. Typically, especially like for the Swiss Guard, it'd be between 6 and 7 feet long. It's not a pike or something along those lines. It's shorter than that. It is a two-handed weapon. Typically, especially if you have a really good halberd, the haft is going to be a octagonal shape, make it easier to control and to turn and to control which end edge of the halberd is facing which direction, and to help the grip. The halberd is the head of the halberd is typically has a long pointed tip for thrusting. It has an axe blade on one side and a hook on the other. So it is a very versatile weapon. That's one of the reasons I like the halberd so much. It is one of the more versatile weapons of the period. However, if you ever play role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, or even online computer games, or not online, but computer games, Xbox games, all that kind of thing, video games in general, I guess I should say, it's often portrayed as a slicing weapon, and it's used to hack with that axe head, most often, especially in the video games, and that's very inaccurate. Yes, you could do that. You absolutely could do that. That axe head was there for a reason, but not necessarily always for that reason. Same thing with the hook on the other side. The halberd was primarily a thrusting weapon. It was used like you would typically use a spear or a pike to thrust. You wanted to thrust with it. It was used typically in formations. You'd have a lot of other halberdiers right alongside you. You'd hold a position. You'd be thrusting. If you're swinging around with this 7-foot weapon, you're going to be as big a danger to your friend on either side of you covering your flanks as you are to the guy in front of you. That's not what this was for, typically. Again, you could use it that way, and they did use it that way, but it was primarily intended to be a thrusting weapon. And it appeared, I want to say the 12th century, in very rudimentary early forms, and then kind of got more progressively common. And you see it especially in the era of cavalry and pike formations. And you'd usually see halberdiers inside the pike formations, primarily in a bodyguard role, guarding the leaders, guarding the banners, that kind of thing. There's a reason for this. Pikes, during the era of pike formations, of massive cavalry charges, and the early period of, for example, knights, you'd form your pike lines. You'd have these massive hedgehog formations or squares to cover all angles, whatever you had. But you'd have layer upon layer of pikes, which made horses charging in very difficult. It made footmen charging in very difficult, especially if you don't have the heavier armor. However, once you get past the point of these pikes, it's a lot harder to deal with you. That's where the halberdiers come in, because the halberds are shorter, they're easier to control, they're easier for close quarter fighting than a spear, not necessarily, or a pike, not necessarily as easy as, for example, a good short sword, but still much better than a 12, 14, 16-foot pike when some guy's right in your face. But one of the advantages that halberds have is that they are multi-purpose. So you have your halberd, you thrust at somebody. If they deflect it to the side or up and over them, for example, up and over with a shield or to the sides, you've gone past them, but you're coming back. You've got a hook and an axe head, which was usually angled. You have your front of your axe here. It was usually angled down this way. That was to make it so it could slice on the way back. So if your halberd goes past somebody, when you pull it back, you can catch them and slice them on the pullback. So unlike pikes and spears and other thrusting weapons like that, or even swords, well, swords you could slice on the way back. But the halberd had the advantage of being much longer. You thrust, they deflect, and you pull back. You can hook the shield, you can hook the weapon, you can hook the person that you're fighting, and even slice them. The hook was often used for if you do a low thrust. If they deflect downward, you can pull back, hook the back of the knee, hook the ankle. A high thrust, if you get past, you can hook the collar, you can hook the back of the neck. It's very effective in that context. And it was a very good defensive weapon when you're trying to hold a position, which makes it ideal for things like bodyguarding. In the case of pike formations, it was a good weapon to have in the center of the pike formation for breakthroughs, because then you got limited people getting through. The halberdiers can take up position there and use their weapons for a better defense. But again, it also can be used as an axe, which is useful against certain situations. So it's very versatile. But primarily thrusting. That's one thing that's always been a pet peeve of mine, is you almost always see it used as a big long axe, and that's not how it was intended to be used primarily. It was an option. So, early on, halberdiers typically were used in tandem with pikes as a defensive formation inside the pike lines, and to protect important individuals or things like bannermen. So it was always kind of seen as a defensive role, and it was usually elite fighters that were the halberdiers, because they were your last line of defense. And you see that translate into halberdiers later on, especially Swiss halberdiers, were used to protect royal families around Europe. I can't tell you offhand which ones did it, but it was kind of common because, again, they were seen as ideal bodyguards. And halberds, unlike things like pikes, are usable indoors in narrow, confined quarters. Again, you thrust and you miss with a spear, you're kind of in trouble. Guy can close in. With a halberd, you miss, you still have that pullback that can be an attack as well. So it's also useful in confined quarters in a way that other polearms often weren't. So that is why you see halberdiers, for example, protecting the Pope. That's totally in character with how halberdiers were used during this period and in the the years leading up to this period. And the Swiss were among the foremost people known for their halberdiers. There were some German halberdiers that were pretty well known as well, and I can't remember what they were called. Started with an L. It's a really long name, like Laubitzer, like LO something. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, you had, and they were present in this battle too on the other side. Yeah, you had the halberdiers were intended for defense. So, can't think of anything else to say about this. We talked about the primary point of this was get Pope Clement to safety. These guys were willing to sell their lives to see that happened. It was very much a serious turning point in religious history, to be quite frank. And like I said, this is right after Martin Luther does his theses. Within a decade of that, Protestantism is on the rise. There's people who are now questioning the church, questioning the role of the Pope, and this is a big test of that. In fact, there was widespread belief at this time that this was confirmation of what Martin Luther was talking about, that the Catholic Church had strayed from the true teachings. again, I've said this in other videos, Martin Luther did not want to bring down the Catholic Church. He wanted to reform it. He wanted to get it back on the straight and narrow, if you will. The idea of starting an entirely different branch of Christianity was not what he intended, but it was the outcome of it. Protestantism. I can never say that word. Protestantism. That's just the unintended consequence of what he did. But this was a big test for the Catholic Church because a lot of people were watching this and saying, look, Martin Luther says the church is corrupt, they're doing things wrong, they're not following the teachings, selling indulgences, and all of that is evidence of this. And now look, the barbarians have descended on Rome again, and they've threatened the Pope, and everything is falling down around their ears. They're in the Vatican, the Holy See, if you will. For a lot of people at this time, this was more evidence that Catholicism was wrong and that Protestantism was the correct path. So, very pivotal moment. And at this particular point in time, one group of people made an important stand to protect the Pope, which kind of helped protect the Catholic Church. It kind of helped it get through this crisis period. Because this was very definitely a crisis period. If the Pope had been killed and fallen in this, it could have sent a very, very powerful message that Catholicism was dead, long live Protestantism. So, really pivotal last stand, if you will. All right, I think I blabbered on enough. Like always, great work from Sabaton. If you are not subscribed to Sabaton's channel, and you liked what you saw here, please get over there and show them some support. They also do have links to learn more about some of these stories they tell, so check those out if you want more. Highly encourage taking a look at what they got to offer. All right, with that said, thank you for joining me. See you all next time. Bye-bye.